After my rebirth, I avoided the path to becoming a real daughter again and again. When the richest couple came to the orphanage to look for my relatives, I personally used a razor blade to cut off the birthmark on the back of my neck. I smashed the jade pendant they left for me. After graduating from university, I went abroad to study in a foreign country. Just because I know that if I am recognized, it will be like in the previous life. Died due to the false accusation of a fake daughter and the favoritism of his parents. They also questioned her, "How could my biological daughter be such a waste as you? You are not even as good as an adopted daughter." But many years later, when I returned to China after achieving success, the richest couple personally poured wine for me. He also said, "It would be great if we could have a daughter as outstanding as you." The story is about to begin. If you like it, remember to like and follow. When I confirmed that I was reborn, I was shaking with excitement. The entire orphanage was being cleaned up because of the incoming richest man. While I was stunned, the topic had already turned to me. I heard that the daughter of the richest family, Kelly, has a butterfly birthmark on the back of her neck, exactly like Linda's. "Linda, you are not really the daughter of the richest man, are you? Then after you are recognized, you must not forget us." I didn't answer, but just calmed myself down. He made an excuse to go to the toilet and left the crowd without looking back. I heard the other kids' disdainful voices behind me. "It's funny that she's already putting on airs before it's even been confirmed that she's the daughter of the richest man. Who knows if her birthmark is real or fake? If I put a tattoo sticker on it, I can also say that I have a birthmark. I have no time to care about other people's quarrels." I hid in the bathroom immediately and looked at myself in the mirror, sweating profusely. I washed my face with cold water several times before I finally calmed down. I was actually reborn. Back to the day when I was adopted into the Kelly family by the richest parents. In my previous life, I relied on the birthmark on the back of my neck and the jade pendant I wore since childhood. The richest man's parents recognized me as their long-lost daughter and took me home on the spot. Others were envious and said that I was going to go home and become a young lady. But when I returned to Kelly's family, I found out that her parents had already adopted another girl, Kelly, as their emotional support. My parents had been with Kelly for more than 10 years, and their feelings for her are much better than for me, their biological daughter who has been missing for a long time. They were unwilling to send Kelly away, so they kept her by their side, an adopted daughter, but told others that she was my sister. They went to great lengths to prove Kelly's identity as the real daughter. I made up a story that she and I were actually twins, but I was taken away when I was born. So, from the moment I returned to the Kelly family, my life fell into endless darkness. My parents always compare me to Kelly. Because I was not smart enough, I dropped out of high school to work, and I did not get into a prestigious university like Kelly did. They think I'm not well behaved enough and just hide in my room at home, unlike Kelly who sticks around and acts like a spoiled brat. Their preference for Kelly is terrifying. Even if she slandered me and said that I was the one who hit her with a small wound on her hand. The parents also believed Kelly's words. Without giving me a chance to explain, he slapped me hard in the face. They were extremely angry and accused me of being too jealous and of using tricks to disgust people. They also said that having a daughter like me was a loss to them. The mother cried out at the top of her lungs, "Why is it not Kelly, my biological daughter, but you, a useless piece of shit?" At that time I was frozen in place and I felt like I had stopped breathing. It turns out that my parents, who are related to me by blood, hate me so much and blame me for taking Kelly's place as their biological daughter. I left the Kelly family in a daze, but was kidnapped by the kidnappers who had been waiting for a long time. They demanded $5 million. The mother who answered the phone had a cold voice. "Aren't you tired of this lowbrow method? You only use this method to win favor all day long. How can you compare to Kelly? You're going to kill me if I don't pay you the ransom? Then you'll be dead." The call was hung up and the kidnapper was furious because he couldn't get the money. I completely lost the idea of resisting and stopped dealing with them. Let them brutally kill me, leaving no trace of my body. Even now, I can still recall the pain of my skin being cut open one by one. I took a deep breath and suddenly heard a scream outside the toilet. "The richest man has arrived. Let's go and take a look." They left with joy. And my hand slowly touched the blade I carried with me. This is something I came up with when I was being bullied by others in the orphanage. Now, this has become my only tool to escape the nightmare of my past life. The blade flashed with a sharp light. I gritted my teeth, endured the severe pain, and dug off the skin on the back of my neck. The sharp pain made me gasp. But I had no time to care about that and quickly pulled off the jade pendant that I had been wearing around my neck for many years. The old red rope rubbed against the skin, leaving a burning and stinging sensation. This is what I have worn since I was a child. The dean said that this might have been bought for me by my biological parents as a keepsake for me to take back home. It's a pity that I never want to go back to the place that tortured me. I will destroy everything that can prove my identity. I picked up the stone in silence and smashed the jade pendant into pieces. Throw it into the toilet, press the flush button, and watch it slowly flow into the sewer. The moment I walked out of the bathroom, I slowly exhaled. My face turned pale due to the pain and excessive blood loss. As I blended into the crowd in front of the orphanage, I heard the director whisper, "Linda, are you sick? Do you want to go back and rest?" I forced a smile at her. "No, I just feel a little uncomfortable." She wanted to say something else, but the luxury car had already stopped. The dean didn't have time to continue asking about my illness and hurried over to greet me with a smile. The parents, who were as graceful and elegant as they were in their previous life, smiled and shook hands with the dean. Everyone knew how hard they worked to find their biological daughter. When the father said that his lost daughter had a butterfly birthmark on the back of her neck, the dean hurriedly pulled me out. "Our Linda has a birthmark like this on the back of her neck, exactly like what you described." The richest couple paused, and when they lowered their eyes to look at me, surprise flashed in their eyes. I know what they are surprised about. Because my mother and I were 60% similar when we were children. So after the birthmark was confirmed in my previous life, I was taken back to the Kelly family immediately without even a paternity test. I am short and could clearly see my parents' hands slowly clenching in excitement. Perhaps they were thinking that their efforts over the past decade had finally paid off and they had finally found their missing daughter. But I sneered in my heart. "I'm really sorry, they will be disappointed today." When the dean was eager to prove himself and hurriedly pulled open my collar, I heard her exclaim, "Linda, why is there such a big wound on the back of your neck? Where is your birthmark?" I bit my lip timidly. "Dean, you must have remembered it wrongly. I have never had a birthmark. I got the wound accidentally while working just now, and I didn't have time to treat it." The dean was a little confused. But other children in the orphanage began to speak up. "Yes, Linda doesn't have a birthmark. It must be some dirt left behind because it wasn't cleaned properly before. She is so timid that she doesn't dare to lie." Growing up in an orphanage, people were jealous of each other. How could they possibly watch me being adopted by the richest man and living the life they had always dreamed of? Since everyone was saying this, the dean didn't know what to say. I also felt relieved in my heart. Finally, I escaped. But I didn't expect that because of our similar looks, the richest man was still suspicious of me. She actually said, "My daughter was wearing a rabbit jade pendant when she went missing. Does Linda have it on her?" My breath caught and I subconsciously clutched my thin trouser pockets. A few minutes ago, there was a jade pendant in the shape of a rabbit inside. Fortunately, I destroyed it. In the orphanage, it is customary not to show off one's wealth. I never dared to wear this jade pendant before, for fear that it would be snatched away by others. "It has been too long," the richest man asked the dean, and the dean was confused for a moment. "I think, there seems to be one, right? I forgot about it too." When they asked me, I just played dumb and shook my head, insisting that I didn't have it. But they didn't believe it. The parents just waved their hands and asked their people to look around the orphanage. What if the child was too naughty and accidentally left it somewhere? "It's a possibility that my daughter is here. Dean, please be considerate." The dean smiled dryly. How dare she say no to these rich and powerful people? So I could only watch helplessly as the assistant brought by the richest man turned the orphanage into a mess. The dean coughed twice and asked others to help look for it. I mingled among the crowd and heard people discussing in low voices. What's there to look for? If the jade pendant really existed, Linda would have taken it out immediately. I'm not stupid. I have to stay in an orphanage instead of enjoying the good life of a rich man's daughter. Looking at the people who were busy searching everywhere, I felt relieved. I personally gave up the opportunity to return to the richest man's family and become the eldest daughter, but I felt unprecedented freedom. After an hour, the richest man's subordinates didn't find anything in the orphanage to prove my identity. Regret and sorrow appeared on the parents' faces. Perhaps at this time, they still have expectations and love for their biological daughter whom they have never met. But slowly, these things just turn into disappointment. Before the richest man left the orphanage, he specifically called me over. In my previous life, I was hysterical and cursed my mother for taking Kelly's place. At this moment, the smile was elegant, but also carried a hint of heartache. She said, "You need to take care of the wound on the back of your neck immediately, otherwise it will be bad if it leaves a scar." She asked her assistant to give me 2,000 yuan for medical expenses. As I held the thin stack of banknotes, a sarcastic smile rose in my heart. It turns out that she can be so kind and gentle to a child who has no relatives or friends. Then in my previous life, why was she always so harsh to me and looked at me with almost hatred? I don't want to keep thinking about it. After receiving the money, I said thank you politely. In this life, they and I are just strangers. There is no hate, and even less love. After the richest couple left, other people looked at me with mockery and pity. Because in their eyes, I lost the chance to become a big lady. Like them, I can only be at the bottom of society. Some people even snorted disdainfully as they passed by me. You dare to guess that you are the missing daughter of the richest man? You are so shameless. Oh, don't talk about Linda. She must be feeling worse than us right now. The sound of laughter never ceased. Unfortunately, they guessed wrong. I don't care at all. At this moment, the only thing in my eyes is the old calendar hanging on the wall. The dean came to ask me, "Linda, didn't you say before that you wanted to drop out of school to work?" I asked the owner of the supermarket next door, and they just happened to be hiring a cashier. In my previous life, I excitedly accepted this job. Some even feel that studying is a waste of time, and it is better to start working early to earn money and accumulate capital for their future. But this time I shook my head. "Dean, I don't want to work. I want to continue studying." As I said that, I turned my head and looked at the calendar again. There are still 3 months left until the college entrance examination. This time I will take a completely different path from my previous life. In my previous life, I dropped out of high school and worked. After being adopted into the Kelly family, Kelly felt extremely inferior despite being praised by his parents for being excellent countless times. It was the first time I realized that once you have money, all educational resources will be tilted towards you. Not only does Kelly receive private guidance from professional teachers from major universities, but even those real test questions that are never passed on to outsiders will be sent to her one by one. Not only does she not have to worry about food and drink and can concentrate on her studies, she also has unique educational advantages. At that time, in order to please my parents, I studied hard for a period of time. The effect of one-on-one guidance is very good. The teachers from those prestigious schools tailored a set of learning methods for me based on my foundation and personality. Teaching students in accordance with their aptitude is much more effective than teaching in school. That is why in this life, I dare to fight for myself in the remaining 3 months and try to create a miracle. Other children in the orphanage often saw me studying hard. But they would all curl their lips and sneer maliciously. "Linda, the college entrance exam is only 3 months away. It's too late for you to study now. Why is she studying so hard? Does she really think she can get into a top university? Oh, she must be feeling unhappy because she didn't become the eldest daughter of the richest family." If it was the kind of words that made fun of me on a daily basis, I would just forget about them and not take them to heart at all. After all, instead of arguing with them, I might as well spend my time studying. But today, someone specifically mentioned Kelly's name. He probably wanted to provoke me, so he kicked open my simple desk and knocked over everything. Then he put his hands on his hips and sneered, "Miss Kelly has been taught by various famous teachers since she was a child. I don't know how good her educational resources are. She can go to any school in China. What about you, Linda? Do you really think that if you study a little, you can get into the same school as the young lady? You are just daydreaming." I was the youngest in the orphanage. That kind of harmonious, friendly, and mutual help situation. It usually only appears in novels and film and television dramas. The truth is, because I was young and weak, I couldn't even feed myself. The older kids would often order me to do work for them while they went back to their rooms to sleep. So he continued to bully me skillfully, trying to find some kind of superiority from me. But I rushed forward and hit him on the head with a heavy book. For a moment, children's screams were everywhere. The dean was alarmed and rushed over to separate us. The person who bullied me had a cut on his forehead from the sharp corner of a book, and blood was dripping. He pointed at me with his trembling right hand, his eyes full of fear. "Linda is crazy, she's a lunatic, she wants to kill me." I pursed my lips and gave him a smile. How could a person who had died once not be driven crazy? Anyone who tries to stop me from moving forward will not be let off easily. 2 months before the college entrance examination, I successfully took the first place in the grade in the monthly exam. The unwillingness in my previous life and the efforts in this life have not let me down. Because of my rapid progress, the school leaders pulled me onto the stage to share my learning experience with everyone. I thought about it and there's actually nothing much to say. The rapid progress I have made in this life is actually just the accumulation of my previous life. To sum it up in one sentence, if you don't die from reading, then read to death. After getting first place in the grade, the school leaders notified me to go and receive the scholarship established by the richest parents in the school. I was stunned when I received the news, but no one can resist money. So I went to the principal's office and met the richest parents I hadn't seen for a long time. Of course, there is also the cute-looking Kelly following behind them. Kelly has been a spoiled young lady for more than 10 years. Surrounded by gold and jade, she no longer looked the timid person she once was, hiding in the corner of the orphanage. When Kelly saw me, she was shocked for a moment. Obviously, I didn't expect that my mother and I would look so similar. Kelly subconsciously glanced at the back of my neck, but the collar of my school uniform blocked my view so tightly that she couldn't see anything. Her fingers were entangled anxiously, but I pretended not to notice, lowered my eyes and followed the teacher into the office. The richest man's parents were also a little surprised to see me. After listening to the teacher, it took me just 1 month to jump from the bottom of the grade to the first. They were even more surprised, and praised my biological parents for their strong genes, for giving birth to such a talented player like me. At this time, an unfriendly voice appeared. Kelly folded her arms and snorted, glancing over at me. From the bottom to the top in 1 month? Even novels wouldn't dare to write like this. Are you cheating? The richest parents called out Kelly's name as a warning. She pouted in grievance, I'm just suspicious. How can such a miracle happen in the world? Kelly even asked me to retake the test on the spot. If the scores are still excellent, she will acknowledge the value of my being the top student in the grade. The teachers didn't say anything. After all, she was nominally the daughter of the richest man, and they dared not offend her. But I dare. I smiled at her and said, Miss Kelly, why should I agree to do the test again? Even if you don't admit that I'm number 1 in the grade, my scores are here. I don't need your approval. Besides, didn't you also rely on being adopted to rise from the bottom of society to become a young lady? What's so unbelievable about that? Hearing this, Kelly suddenly stood up from her chair and glared at me angrily. How dare you talk to me like that? She was used to others' obedience and admiration, so she found it hard to accept the sudden rebuttal. He even raised his hand high and hit me directly in the face. I didn't hide, nor did I fear. He just raised his head and looked at her calmly. Kelly's hand suddenly stopped in midair. Because her mother glanced at her calmly and said in a serious tone, Have you had enough of the trouble? Aren't you ashamed? Kelly curled her fingers and bit her lip, her eyes misty. Such a familiar expression. In her previous life, she would act like this every time she complained to her parents and accused me of bullying her. Unexpectedly, the person who made her look aggrieved today was actually her mother, who doted on her in every way. Kelly didn't dare to say anything else, and the teachers looked a little embarrassed. They abruptly changed the subject and mentioned the scholarship. The mother said, What happened today is that Kelly was rude, so we decided to increase the scholarship amount a bit. A full 100,000 yuan in cash was delivered to me. My parents also told me that I could contact them if I had any problems with tuition fees in the future. They have an education fund specifically for supporting poor students. I was holding a bag of banknotes and suddenly I didn't understand what my parents were planning. They have already confirmed that I am not the little daughter who got lost. Then why would you show me kindness for no reason? Shortly after I left the office, a dark shadow suddenly covered my eyes. Kelly was standing at the top of the stairs. I don't know how long she had been waiting for me. Without saying a word, he grabbed my collar and looked behind my neck. I was stunned for a moment and didn't have time to react, so I let Kelly look at the back of my neck. After I found out I had no birthmark, but only a brown scabby scar. I clearly heard Kelly sigh with relief and murmur, "Thank goodness, thank goodness." Then she shook her hand away in disgust. The fear in his eyes slowly turned back into arrogance. "Your name is Linda, right? Who did I think you were? Why are you so pretentious? And I'm pretending to be a good student in front of my mom so she can scold me?" She also snatched the paper bag and found stacks of bright red banknotes inside, and her eyes became even more disdainful. "You are such an ungrateful bastard. You took my family's money and still want to be mean to me. Humph, you are so shameless." Kelly raised her hand, tore up the banknotes and threw them down the stairs, like a heavy red rain. She looked at me defiantly. "Don't you like money? Kneel down and pick it up." I crossed my arms and leisurely enjoyed Kelly's performance. After getting rid of the shadow of my past life, I found that she was just a clown who was seeking attention. She was afraid that her parents would favor other children more than her, so she jumped up and down just to get their attention. I smiled faintly. "Your mother just told me that she wanted to talk to me about the issue of funding." I calculated the time. "She should have come downstairs a long time ago, right?" Kelly was stunned and looked up suddenly. I suddenly realized that my mother had been standing in the shadow at the corner of the stairs, watching everything happen quietly. She widened her eyes in panic and called out "Mom" tremblingly. But the next second, her mother's slap landed on her face. "Kelly, apologize." Kelly had her proud head pressed down and was forced to apologize to me. It brought a strange smile to my heart. See, it turns out that parents also have the ability to identify who is the culprit. Then why in my previous life, they never listened to my explanations? Are you piling so many charges on me based on Kelly's one-sided statement? Even when I was kidnapped, they believed that I was competing for Kelly's favor. Do they love Kelly too much, or do they hate me too much? Do you think my life or death is not important at all? I suddenly lost interest in watching the fun, turned around and left the teaching building, no longer caring about the disputes and quarrels in the Kelly family. So, I didn't hear the last words my mother uttered when she scolded Kelly. "Your family has invested so many resources in you since you were young, yet you are easily surpassed by others through their own efforts. What kind of inferior genes did your biological parents have to make you such a hopeless case?" Later, the assistant of the richest man's parents went to the school again and transferred the scholarship to me again. After adding more, the total amount is $150,000. I didn't refuse. He also left part of the money to the orphanage to be used as support for other children. The remaining money will be used for future college tuition. In fact, I never blamed the dean. I just hated her for not standing up when others bullied me. Because there are too many children in the orphanage. She is everyone's dean mom, not just mine. My mother had already broken down in her previous life and asked me why I was her biological daughter. She had already been killed by herself. In the last simulation before the college entrance examination, my score was far higher than others. My classmates all said that I would probably be the top scorer in the college entrance examination. The school leaders and teachers were all smiling brightly and their attitude towards me was unprecedentedly good. After all, if a school can produce a top scorer in the college entrance examination, it is far better than putting out countless recruitment advertisements. At the mobilization meeting before the college entrance examination, the richest man is here again. He said that whoever won the top spot in this year's college entrance examination would be rewarded with 500,000 yuan in cash. The crowd below was whispering, and countless eyes fell on me. I seemed unaware and just looked at Kelly quietly. Compared to the last time we met, she was obviously much thinner and her eyes looked gloomy. I know that she is a person who is easily consumed by internal friction. In my previous life, I was worried that my parents would abandon me after I returned home, so they kept slandering me. In this life, I naturally feel uneasy when I notice something strange in my parents' attitude towards me. Because I am the same as her. She has no blood relationship with her parents, but she has been the eldest daughter for so many years because of her parents' favoritism. But what if one day, the preference is given to someone else? Would she then have to go back to the dark and small orphanage and live with those people whom she considered to be inferior? I'm afraid just imagining it would drive Kelly crazy. But I ignored the warning in Kelly's eyes. I looked down at the date. There are only 10 days left until the college entrance examination. These 10 days are my last chance to change my fate and not make the same mistakes again. After the mobilization meeting, my parents found me privately and encouraged me to do well in the college entrance examination. Relax, don't be nervous, just keep a normal attitude. Kelly seemed anxious to change her image in front of her parents and tried to please me. She forced a friendly smile and said, "Linda, if only you could go to the same university as me, I would definitely take good care of you." She said nice things, but jealousy welled up in her eyes and she pinched her palms tightly. The look on her face made me want to laugh for some reason. The corners of my lips curled up and I smiled and refused. "Thank you, but no thanks. Because there is absolutely no chance that you will be in the university I'm going to. With the opportunity of going to college, I will fly higher and farther, and from now on, I will have nothing to do with you Kelly family. This is the path I planned for myself when I was reborn. Kelly hates me so much." But she didn't dare to provoke me again, for fear of arousing her mother's disgust and losing her favor. The love of raising someone for more than 10 years is deep. But in the repeated quarrels, it will be slowly worn away. By that time, she would be just a stranger to her richest parents. Her parents treat her exactly the same as I did in my previous life. Because of our thin blood relationship, they gave up on me decisively after deciding that I didn't meet their standards of excellence and wasn't as good as Kelly. Even though I am my mother's biological daughter who was born after a long struggle and who is connected to her by blood. It's the same now. Because I'm better than Kelly, I become someone else's child. This became the reason for them to dislike Kelly, whom they had raised since childhood. But I underestimated how much Kelly hated me. She actually bribed the candidates from our school during the college entrance examination. Then he complained to the examiner, saying that I cheated. I don't know that student. But looking at his ill-fitting clothes and cracked shoes, you can tell that his family is not well off. He complained to the examiner in a trembling voice. He said that I paid him to secretly send me the answers to the college entrance examination in the name of going to the toilet. I couldn't help but laugh. "I asked you to cheat? Your grades combined are not even a fraction of mine, why would I ask you to cheat?" The student's face turned pale, but he still said stubbornly, "It was you who asked me to secretly look up the answers on my phone, so I..." The examiner patted the table with a serious expression. "There are signal jammers in the exam room, so cell phones can't be used anymore." "What nonsense are you talking about?" The student found it difficult to argue and remained speechless for a long time with his mouth open. Especially when the examiner said that he had slandered others indiscriminately, not only would his college entrance examination results be cancelled, but he might also go to jail. He suddenly burst into tears, trembling. "It was someone else paid me to spread rumors. It's none of my business. You can't send me to jail." The examiner checked the chat content on his mobile phone and indeed found records of money transactions. The other person's profile picture looked familiar. It was the profile picture of Kelly that I had seen in my previous life. She didn't even bother to hide this crude trick and directly showed her ill will towards me. Students also blurted out her name. For a moment, the whole South City was bustling with activity. Everyone is talking about the richest man's daughter slandering others for cheating in the college entrance examination. Occasionally, his eyes moved away, always filled with disdain. I heard that the boy was adopted by the richest man's family, not his biological child. No wonder he did something so shameful. Why is she ruining other people's college entrance exams? It's such an important matter, what if she can't go to college? You're jealous of others' good grades. Isn't the student being slandered the top student in the grade? I heard he might even be the top scorer in the college entrance exam. TSK, I didn't expect you to be so petty. According to numerous South City tabloids, Kelly had long been locked up at home by her parents and forbidden from going out. At the same time, one piece of gossip after another spread on the internet. Kelly's name was on everyone's lips. I can imagine how much face the richest man's parents lost because of her, and how angry they are. When the results came out, I became the top scorer in the college entrance examination in Nanjing as I wished, and also received an admission letter from my favorite university. The richest parents finally appeared in front of me, bringing not only the promised bonus but also a funding contract. They knew that I grew up in an orphanage and didn't have much money, and even paying for tuition seemed difficult. So they said they could sponsor me, but the condition was that I must work in their company after graduating from university. I refused. I didn't tell them that after graduating from university, I planned to study abroad and keep the greatest distance from them. I just made up an excuse to get away with it. There was regret in the mother's eyes, and she sighed and took back the contract. Then he sighed, Linda, you look so much like me, it's a pity you're not my daughter. It would be great if my daughter could be as good as you. I froze in my attempt to stand up. What comes to my mind is not the joy and excitement of being recognized by my parents. Instead, he sneered again and again. What they needed was not a daughter. They just need a carrier that is good enough so that they can show off and gain benefits for themselves. I lowered my eyes to look at my clenched hands and the nail marks that were deeply dug into my palms. I finally figured it out. It shouldn't just be Kelly that I hate. What we should hate more are the richest parents who caused all this. They were evaluating each other like commodities, observing who between me and Kelly could bring them more benefits. Once I fail to achieve my goal, I will give up decisively. How ridiculous. I lived a happy 4 years in college away from Kelly and the Kelly family. Not only was he busy with studies and clubs, he also participated in competitions everywhere and won many awards. Later, he applied to study abroad to continue his studies. I started a business with a few friends. Within just 2 years, the company had numerous patents and became well known in the industry. When I graduated and returned to China, I was invited by many partners to attend various cocktail parties. At the cocktail party, I met the richest man's parents and Kelly, whom I hadn't seen for many years. They don't seem as happy now as they were in their previous life. Kelly followed behind her parents, cowering and silent. Her parents looked indifferent, as if they couldn't see her at all. I heard partners gossiping in low voices that Kelly had long been abandoned by her parents and that the only role she had left was in a business marriage. The Kelly family's huge business could not fall into her hands. She is just an outsider to her parents. I listened quietly without saying a word. Until my parents came to me for a social event. Their surprised expressions didn't seem fake, and they started praising me as soon as they opened their mouths. Even other partners were joining in the fun, saying that I looked somewhat like my mother. Even if they are not biological mother and daughter, you can still recognize a godfather or godmother. I declined. But Kelly's eyes became darker and darker. In the middle of the cocktail party, when I went to the courtyard to get some fresh air, I suddenly heard an argument nearby. The familiar voices turned out to be my mother and Kelly. There was a bright red slap mark on the side of Kelly's face. Kelly stared into her mother's eyes with stubbornness and pain. Do you think I'm so ashamed that you want to go back to the past and crush me to death in that orphanage? Or do you regret that when your own daughter got lost, the child you adopted wasn't Linda, and you think I took her place? Kelly's voice was close to a roar. I stood in their blind spot and took a sip of wine slowly. Such familiar words. In my previous life, my mother ignored me because of Kelly. I questioned her too. I asked her why she brought me home from the orphanage if she felt I was a disappointment to her. Or maybe she regretted giving birth to me. She thinks the best person to be her biological daughter is Kelly. I really didn't expect that the order of the protagonists in the conversation would be changed so quickly. The mother's answer was even colder. There was a hint of annoyance on her well-maintained face. Kelly, be careful how you talk to me. I'm your mother. If I hadn't brought you back from the orphanage more than 20 years ago, do you think you could have lived such a good life? The mother's words hurt more than the slap on Kelly's face. She was silent and shed tears. As her mother turned to leave, she paused and looked sideways at her. The usually gentle voice stabbed Kelly with countless knives. She said, "Now I am actually a little glad that you are not my biological daughter. My daughter should be as good as Linda, not like you, who is an ungrateful person who bites back after getting the benefit." When the cocktail party was over, I received an invitation from my mother. Her birthday party is in 2 days, and she wants me to join her. She looked at me with emotion, as if she could see through me what her dream little daughter should be like. The corners of the eyes, with faint fine lines appearing, were all filled with satisfied smiles. I was going to refuse. But what my mother had said in the courtyard before kept repeating in my mind. It seemed as if it overlapped with the curse she cast upon me in my previous life. Suddenly, I didn't want to escape anymore. So I nodded and agreed. Even as she enthusiastically shook my hand, she pursed her lips and smiled. I said, "I will give you a gift you will never forget." My mother was even happier, nodded repeatedly, and said she was looking forward to seeing me next time. On the way back to the hotel, I lowered my eyes and looked at the long hair clamped between my fingertips. If they knew that their biological daughter, whom they had been looking for, had stood in front of them countless times over the years. Now he is the one they hold at the top of their hearts, But they could no longer recognize her because she was an adult and no longer needed a guardian. I now have my own career and confidence, and I will never yield to anyone again. How regretful and unwilling will they be? What will become of Kelly? Will it be the same as in my previous life? I have no idea. But I'm looking forward to it. I took 2 documents to my mother's birthday party. Many guests looked at me secretly wondering what I would give to my mother. Is it a piece of land that is still being auctioned, or a business contract? I responded to everyone who came to ask questions with a polite smile. Until the banquet began, the parents, as hosts, stood on the stage and expressed their gratitude to all the guests. Just at this moment, the phone rang urgently. The mother frowned slightly and smiled apologetically at everyone. As soon as the call was connected, the kidnapper's hoarse voice was heard. I have your daughter in my hands. Give me 50 million, or I will kill her. His voice came through the microphone and reached everyone's ears. As if to prove it, he also gave Kelly his cell phone. The woman's screams and cries for help made one's scalp tingle. The guests gasped and began to whisper to each other. I was mixed in the crowd and suddenly began to wonder what decision my parents would make. In their previous life, they loved Kelly so much. Maybe, my parents won't give up on Kelly like they gave up on me. Unfortunately, I guessed wrong. The mother said coldly, my daughter has been missing for more than 20 years. Who did you kidnap? You don't think you can cheat money from me by just picking someone to act, do you? The whole place was silent, even Kelly's crying stopped. The only thing left was the kidnapper's cold snort. He asked his parents to think it over carefully, as the bullet was already loaded. If they deny it again, Kelly will die. The mother's response was to hang up the phone and then blacklist the number. A few minutes later, a video went viral on the internet. It was the video of Kelly being tortured and killed. The scene is extremely bloody and cruel. It was as if the kidnappers were venting their anger at not getting the ransom. Although the video was quickly blocked, everyone knew that Kelly was dead. As Kelly's parents, the richest couple who had doted on her for more than 20 years, were unwilling to pay the ransom. The banquet hall fell into endless silence, and then noisy conversation. The death of an outsider does not affect their social activities. As the glasses were clinking, the parents raised their hands slightly to indicate that they had something to announce. They actually wanted to adopt me as their goddaughter in front of everyone. The smile on my mother's face was so gentle. When I first met Linda, I felt that she and I were very similar and that we were destined to be together. If my daughter hadn't disappeared, she would have grown up to be as outstanding as Linda. So Linda, are you willing to be my goddaughter? To outsiders, it probably seemed like I had ascended from a sparrow into a phoenix. There was an endless stream of envious congratulations. I inexplicably became the center of everyone's attention, and the 2 light documents in my hands suddenly felt as heavy as 1,000 pounds. I clenched my palms and looked into my parents' expectant eyes. Before that, Kelly's father and Kelly's mother, why don't you take a look at the gifts I gave you? I pulled out the first document, and on the cover was written the words paternity test in large letters. A look of surprise flashed across the parents' faces. After taking the document, they flipped through it casually and suddenly their eyes widened. I smiled and said, when I went to the hospital earlier, I suddenly had an idea and did a paternity test for Kelly's mother and me. I didn't expect that we are actually biological mother and daughter. The whole audience was in uproar. The parents' originally stunned expressions suddenly became excited. My mother even shed tears and came forward to hug me. But I took a step back, dodged her hug, and took out the second document. This is a contract to sever the parent-child relationship. Please sign it. As soon as the words fell, the expressions of those excited guests changed instantly. They asked me in horror whether I was crazy and why I wanted to break off relations with the richest man. This is hundreds of billions of assets, and you just want to give it up? I pretended not to hear anything and just looked at my stunned parents and repeated it again. Please sign your names, both of you. Mother looked a little pale. Linda, do you dislike Mom and Dad? Why do you want to break off relations? Did Mom and Dad do something wrong? Tell me, can we change it now? Or do you care about Kelly? Don't worry about Linda, she's dead. No one will snatch your things from you. If I heard these words in my previous life, I would have been very happy, right? Unfortunately, in my previous life, I died at the hands of kidnappers. Now I don't want to have anything to do with them. I casually handed the contract for severing parent-child relations to a servant of a certain richest man's family with an indifferent expression. Remember to sign. Before my parents could stop me, I walked through the crowd and left. I can guess that they won't agree easily. After all, Kelly was dead and I was their only daughter. Not to mention, my mother praised me for my excellence many times and thought that I was what her ideal daughter should be like. They came to me frequently and even forced me to meet them under the pretext of business cooperation, hoping that I would return to the Kelly family. After countless rejections, my parents' expectations of me gradually turned into anger. I'm your mother. I went through so much hardship carrying you for 10 months and almost died in the hospital bed. Now that you've grown up and become successful, you completely disregard the blood relationship between mother and daughter? Do you still have a conscience? Go ask around and see which kids dare to treat their parents like this. You are being unfilial. I was unmoved by my parents' anger. Finally, they broke down. He slammed the table and asked me what I wanted him to do in order to return to his roots. I looked up and said with interest, you know what? That jade pendant is very hard. It took me a long time to smash it into powder. Otherwise, it would have blocked the sewer. My mother widened her eyes in panic and looked at me as if she was a stranger. You smashed the jade pendant yourself? You knew it a long time ago. I nodded indifferently and deliberately showed them the back of my neck. Even after the scab heals, it will still be a layer of uneven skin. I said, not only did I know it a long time ago, I even dug out the birthmark myself. Because I don't want to have anything to do with you, got it? The parents were so shocked that their faces turned pale. His lips trembled, but he couldn't utter a word for a long time. Because of Kelly's death, and my rejection. My parents gradually became irritable and stubborn, and would jump up and down and curse at people at the slightest provocation. The Kelly family's company frequently encountered problems because of this. By the time one business war after another ended, the Kelly family, once the richest family, had become a crumbling building on the brink of bankruptcy. My parents, who looked like they had aged decades, saw me one last time. They wanted me to help them. My gray-haired father even gave me a pleading look. Linda, please, I beg you. The Kelly family cannot be destroyed by me. Mom and Dad swear, if you help the Kelly family this time, we will never come to you again. Just think of it as repaying your mother and I for giving birth to you, and helping the Kelly family through this crisis, okay? I casually put down my pen and signed a contract. Then he placed the pen cap against his chin and let out a soft ah. But when I died in my previous life, I returned the love of giving birth to you. My parents' eyes widened in shock, and I slowly told them everything about my past life. When I told my parents that I was adopted into the Kelly family, they thought I was useless and gave up on me. Even when he was kidnapped by kidnappers, he could not get any mercy from his parents and was eventually brutally murdered. The mother seemed to have suffered a severe blow. Her body swayed slightly and her face was already covered with tears. How could this happen? You are my beloved daughter. How could I do this to you? There was also a miserable look on my father's face. Then, the parents raised their heads again and said anxiously, Linda, this is all from our past life. It will definitely not happen in this life. If you help the Kelly family once, we won't talk about these things anymore. Just live a good life, okay? I was silent for a few seconds, and under their expectant looks, I pressed the intercom line. Assistant Lynn, please show him out. From now on, Kelly's father and Kelly's mother are not welcome to visit our company. A few days after my parents passed away, I closed the net and pocketed the last bit of Kelly family assets. Yes, this is hundreds of billions of assets, how could I not want it? Maybe my mother was right when she said, I inherited their good genes and am a business genius. After the Kelly family went completely bankrupt, his parents committed suicide in the Kelly family mansion. They were used to being the best among the people and enjoyed decades of extravagant life. Becoming ordinary people overnight was a huge blow to them. Maybe they feel that death is a relief. He made an excuse to go to the toilet and left the crowd without looking back. Yet, I shook my head silently. I have nothing to do with them anymore, so there's no need to go. Next to me is a document. It was sent to me together with the news of my parents' suicide. They had already signed an agreement to sever parent-child relations. Before they died, they seemed to have finally regained the last bit of love they had for me. As I wished, we broke off the relationship and had nothing to do with each other anymore. I clutched the agreement, a tear slowly falling from the corner of my eye. I left behind the painful nightmare of my past life. Finally, completely free. That's not right either. Looking at the newly delivered asset statement, I fell into new distress. My bond with them. There are still millions and millions of billions.